I never imagined that a tough cowboy would teach a wealthy widow the meaning of love. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the sprawling fields of Destiny Ranch. It should have been beautiful, but inside me, everything felt dark, like a storm brewing. I stood at the edge of my perfectly manicured lawn, hands trembling, heart racing. My husband had just walked out, leaving nothing but silence and a house echoing with memories. He chose money over love. I was the wealthy widow, but my riches felt like chains, holding me down, suffocating me. The weight of despair clung to me like the heavy scent of earth after rain. That's when I saw him, a towering figure silhouetted against the fading sunlight, the kind of tough cowboy you'd expect to see riding off into the sunset. He was real, raw, and rugged. His hands, calloused from hard work, were wrapped around a lasso, and his hat shadowed his eyes. But what struck me most were those eyes, dark, haunted, yet full of unspoken stories. As he approached, every step was a heartbeat in my chest. It was strange. A knot formed in my throat. Here was a man who had nothing to lose, and I, the woman who had everything but love. The tension between us crackled like the air before a lightning strike. When he spoke, his voice was a gravelly whisper, yet it echoed powerfully in my bones. "You look lost, Ma." Those words pierced through my fog. I felt exposed. Could he sense the hollowness inside me? I nodded, unable to form a response. The world around us faded away. The laughter of nearby guests at my estate party blurred into a distant hum. Something about this man made me feel alive. He was a wild card in my neatly ordered life. Suddenly, a shout rang out from behind us, breaking the moment. But I was already captivated. What was a tough cowboy doing at a lavish party? It didn't make sense. Questions swirled in my mind. Was he here to mock me? To offer sympathy? Or on some unexpected quest of his own? And just then, the party's mood shifted. A hushed whisper traveled through the crowd. Someone had discovered a dark secret about my past. I turned back to the cowboy, but he was already stepping away, his back to me again. I couldn't lose this chance. I had to know more about him. The heart pounding in my chest screamed for me to follow. But could a woman like me ever bridge the chasm between our worlds? My blood ran cold as I captured a glimpse of him glancing over his shoulder, his eyes searching. Did he feel it too? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The whisper of anxiety slithered through the crowd, catching in my throat as I tried to push past the flood of guests. They stood in clusters, their murmurs swirling around like a dark storm cloud, heavy with judgment and anticipation. My heart raced, every pulse echoing the desperate need to reach the cowboy before he slipped away into the night. "Where do you think you're going, Celeste?" A familiar voice called out, pulling me back from the precipice of action. It was Harold, my husband's business partner, his tone mocking, a bead of malicious triumph glittering in his eyes. He'd always been fond of pointing out my shortcomings, and right now, it felt like he reveled in my unraveling. Just a moment, please," I stammered, barely meeting his gaze. But all I could think about was the way the cowboy had looked at me, how his presence had stirred something within me that had long lain dormant. I didn't want to let it go. "Everyone's waiting for you, darling," he said with a feigned sweetness that seeped with condescension. "It would be a good time to put your best face forward. After all, we wouldn't want any more skeletons rattling out of your closet tonight, would we?" I forced a smile, my stomach turning. In that moment, I made a choice. I couldn't let myself be confined by the gilded cage this life had become. I pushed past Harold, my determination ignited. The stars began to twinkle as I stepped outside, the cool air wrapping around me like a balm. I scanned the expanse of my sprawling estate, the field stretching beyond like an ocean of dark waves in the night. Where had that cowboy gone? The rhythmic sound of hooves against packed earth caught my attention, drawing my gaze to the barn, a once cherished space that now felt like a relic of happier times. As I approached, I could see movement inside, the flickering light of a lantern casting shadows that danced across the walls. Tentatively, I stepped inside, my heart fluttering with hope and trepidation. There he was, the tough cowboy, adjusting the saddle on a worn brown horse, his broad shoulders rising and falling with each movement, an effortless grace that belied his rugged exterior. "Thought you'd gone back to the party," he said without turning, his voice a low rumble that sent shivers down my spine. I didn't want to," I admitted, my breath catching in my throat. "I wanted to find you." He finally turned to face me, his expression inscrutable, yet those deep eyes conveyed a depth that resonated with my own heartache. "You're a long way from where you belong, Ma Em," he said softly. "Maybe I don't belong there anymore," I spat, the defiance spilling out alongside my vulnerability. "Maybe I'd rather be here, in the presence of someone who sees me, not the money, not the facade." He chuckled lightly, a sound filled with warmth that sliced through the heaviness of my pain. "Is that so? Half of this world will always see you as just a wealthy widow, but you're more than that, aren't you?" The question fell heavy between us, each word charged with honesty. I felt raw, the confession was bittersweet. I wanted to be seen, but every attempt to shed my mask felt like breaking apart at the seams. But before I could respond, a scream pierced the tranquility of the night, a high, frantic cry. My stomach dropped as I recognized it. The guests were rushing toward the barn, their faces twisted in horror. "Oh no," I whispered, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach. I had left the party, half hoping they'd forget the truth about me, but it seemed fate had other plans. "Stay here," the cowboy said, his tone shifting to one of urgency as he moved toward the entrance. But I grabbed his arm, panic quickening my pulse. "I can't, what's happening?" He turned to me, concern etching his features. "Just trust me." But I couldn't. I wouldn't stand by when chaos erupted not far from where I stood. I had lived in fear for too long. I pulled away and surged past him, determined to face the storm head-on. What I saw left me breathless. A group of guests gathered around the flickering light, one of my closest friends collapsed on the ground, her face pale as she clutched her chest. The panic in the air crackled with electricity, and as I looked around, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread creeping into my bones. In that moment, amidst the commotion, I felt a pull deeper than the chaos. It was his presence, the cowboy's steady hand gripping my shoulder as he joined me. Our eyes connected, and I saw the unspoken bond growing between us, two souls desperately seeking solace in a world fraught with turmoil, and in the midst of that wild moment, darkness, secrets, and a shaft of unexpected light. My heart longed for answers, for connection, for love to rise from the ashes of despair. But before we could react further, the unexpected sound of sirens blared in the distance, and my world began to crumble around me once again. What had I triggered? The past loomed, promising to engulf me, and the shadows of my choices whispered that even amidst hope, devastation often lies in wait, waiting to strike without warning. The panic settled over the gathered guests like a thick fog, muffling their frantic whispers and the sound of sirens approaching. I felt the world close in around me. The barn's familiar smells of hay and leather had transformed into reminders of all the beauty lost amid this chaos. My heart thundered as I knelt by my friend, a sense of helplessness enveloping me like a cold shroud. "Stay back," someone shouted, pushing through the crowd, but I didn't want to retreat. I wanted to take charge. I wanted to be the one who could help. To feel anything other than this crushing sensation in my chest. The cowboy moved beside me, his presence a grounding force, anchoring me amidst the swirling tempest. "Someone call an ambulance." I shouted, the urgency in my voice breaking through the thick haze of fear. I glanced at the cowboy, who nodded firmly, his determined expression matching my own rising panic. "Stay with her," he called out over his shoulder as he pushed through the crowd, his strong frame parting the sea of startled faces. I listened to him, knowing I needed to be strong for my friend, yet within me still lay a flicker of doubt. "Celeste," my friend gasped, her voice a fragile whisper. Her eyes mirrored the terror I felt, and I gripped her hand, willing warmth into her fingers. I don't feel good." "It's going to be okay," I assured her, forcing out the words, even as dread twisted in my stomach. "Help is on the way." The chaos faded to a faint hum as I focused on her breathing, trying to push aside my own swirling thoughts. If only I had arrived sooner at the party, if only I hadn't lost myself in fleeting thoughts of freedom. But the truth crept up on me like a thief, whispering false blame. It was all connected, my escape and my friend's distress. "Hang in there," I whispered again, tears stinging my eyes as panic threatened to swallow me whole. Was this my fault? What kind of person would run from responsibilities, only to find their friend on the brink of tragedy? Suddenly, the cowboy returned, a phone in hand, and urgently relayed information into a calm presence. "I've called for help. They're on their way, but we need to keep her calm until they arrive." I met his gaze, and in his eyes was a quiet strength, an understanding that transcended our fleeting encounter. My heart ached with the realization, in the midst of this terrifying moment, perhaps I had found something I'd long thought lost. What if I began, but the sirens grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. Instead, I wrapped my fingers tighter around my friend's hand, determination igniting within me. She needed me now, not the ghosts of my choices. As the minutes dragged on, I delved deep into memories, recalling happier times with my friend, our adventures, our laughter, the way she had always seen the real me beneath the gilded surface. I would not give up on her, on us, not when we had been bound by years of shared joy. But as I focused on her, the crashing wave of insecurity continued to roll through me. What about me? Who was Celeste beyond what others perceived? Would I lose myself entirely, or could I find salvation amid pain? The sirens finally drew closer, and the tension transformed the air into something electric. In that moment, I felt the warmth of the cowboy's hand resting on my shoulder, steadying me, while his presence burned bright against the dark shadows lurking within. There was something magnetic in the way he remained grounded, unyielding despite the chaos unfurling. The paramedics burst through the crowd at last, their presence a welcome relief. They moved quickly, assessing the situation and stabilizing my friend. I felt a rush of gratitude for their calm competence, for the hope they sparked in the fragile atmosphere that surrounded us, yet just as relief began to wash over me, the cold reality sank in. My gaze locked with the cowboy's, words unspoken lingering heavily between us, filled with the weight of everything remaining unsaid. I had learned something profound tonight, a chance at love had sprouted in the ashes of my desperation. But in that very moment, I also understood how frayed our connection truly was, teetering on the edge of revelation and heartbreak, and within that palpable tension, something new sparked. An unexpected confrontation waited just beyond the horizon. As the paramedics worked, a familiar figure appeared at the barn entrance, Harold, his posture dripping with arrogance. He stood there, the shadows clinging to him like a cloak, his eyes narrowing as he swept his gaze across the scene. The chaos, the urgency, and the cowboy's looming presence beside me. In that instant, I knew that this confrontation would carry consequences. Just as I began to feel a sense of clarity about my desires, the storm within my life had shifted yet again, shaking the very foundation of what I thought I knew. What would Harold do next? Would he expose my turmoil, erasing any shred of hope I had clutched? I felt the weight of impending conflict settle over me once more, praying that the embers of possibility would smother the flames of despair, if only for a moment longer. The atmosphere inside the barn shifted once more, the air thick with an electric tension as Harold stepped closer, closer still until I could smell the faint scent of his cologne mingling with hay and fear. His dark gaze pierced through the haze of chaos around us, and instinctively, I found myself shrinking, the walls I had spent years building around my confidence trembling at his arrival. "Celeste," he called, his voice smooth but laced with an edge that made my stomach twist. "What is going on here? Why are you on the floor with her? Do you always find yourself in such unfortunate situations?" The words dripped like poison, and I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks. I wanted to shout that it wasn't my fault her health had spiraled out of control, that I was trying my best, but instead, I bit my tongue. I focused on my friend, still lying vulnerable on the ground, her breaths shallow and uneven. I wouldn't let Harold's dark energy infect this moment any further. "Leave her alone, Harold," the cowboy interjected, stepping between us, his strong posture unyielding. "We're helping her. I suggest you step back." A flash of irritation flickered across Harold's face, but he recovered quickly, a smile creeping onto his lips imbued with malice. "Helping? Surely a wealthy widow can afford better company than a cowboy playing the hero." The words twisted around my heart, stinging. I felt the truth in them. My wealth defined my social standing while I sought authenticity among rough edges and layers of uncertainty. Yet, as the cowboy turned his gaze toward me, I noticed something in his eyes, a promise of something more, a genuine connection just waiting to bloom. "Shut up, Harold." I finally managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "No one needs your opinions. Just back off until the paramedics finish. What do you care about anyone's feelings? You really think you can push me away, Celeste?" Harold's words dripped with condescension, his eyes narrowing as they flicked over the gathered crowd. He thrived on this disruption, feeding off chaos. Before I could respond, the paramedics finished their assessment, and one of them called to me, "We need you to step back for a moment, ma'am." I momentarily spared a glance at Harold, whose triumphant smirk evaporated for just a moment as he heard the urgency behind the paramedics' words. That fleeting glimpse of powerlessness ignited a flicker of hope within me, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this tumultuous storm. As I stepped back, I felt a familiar presence beside me, the cowboy, his gaze still locked on my friend, an unwavering source of strength. Just then, another siren wailed outside as another ambulance pulled up, the flashing lights scintillating through the barn's open door like strobe lights in a concert. "Your self-worth isn't defined by him," the cowboy murmured, leaning closer as the paramedics tended to my friend. I caught his scent, fresh and earthy, and clung to it as I inhaled deeply, searching for solace. "You're stronger than you know." In his words, I found a kind of clarity. Holding on to the cowboy's promise of strength felt like capturing a beam of sunlight turning darkness to light, my fingers grasping for the warmth of his belief in me. In that moment, I could feel Harold's grasp loosening on me, though he still loomed ominously in the barn's entrance, a specter tethered to my past. Help continued to swarm around us, yet the weight of Harold's oppressive nature threatened to suffocate the flickers of hope. I glanced back at my friend, still pale and struggling. "Please, you have to be okay," I whispered, my heart aching. Once the paramedics stabilized her, they began to load her onto the stretcher. I followed close behind, seeking reassurance with every step, allowing the cowboy to guide me gently, edging me forward as if I were a delicate flower drawn toward sunlight. As my friend was wheeled away, I turned to face Harold, ready to confront him head-on. But before I could voice my thoughts, he threw me a chilling smile, one that promised turmoil yet again. "Remember this moment, Celeste. This is what happens when you step out of line," he said, before slipping back into the shadows, his laughter echoing in his wake. The space he had occupied felt even darker, the remnants of his condescension hanging in the air. I turned urgently to the cowboy, searching his eyes for strength, for something that would anchor me against Harold's malice. "Is he right?" I whispered, panic rising again. "Will I keep losing everything?" The cowboy stepped closer, his brow furrowed in concern, and for a moment, I thought I could drown in the sincerity of his gaze, a mirror reflecting my insecurity back to me but with a hint of promise. "Not if you fight for it," he said earnestly, laying a firm hand on my shoulder. "You don't have to let him win. You've already shown so much strength tonight." I inhaled deeply, steeling my resolve, yet in the back of my mind, the reality of what Harold's words sparked a haunting question: had I been wrong in ever attempting to escape my gilded cage? My heart raced with uncertainty as I processed his threat. And just as hope bloomed within me, ready to scale the walls of despair, the sirens began to fade. The world outside pushed me back into my reality, leaving me poised at the edge of uncertainty. Would the cowboy remain beside me long enough for me to summon the strength to fight? Or would Harold's shadow consume the garden of hope I had barely begun to cultivate? As I walked toward the ambulance, my heart heavy, my thoughts spiraled into a desperate question: what would be required to keep my friends close and myself secure? In that moment, I felt more alive than ever, but the sharpness of what lay ahead pierced through me, a cliffhanger whispering dark secrets yet to be revealed. The barn door creaked along its rusty hinges as I stepped into the moonlit night, the cold air wrapping around me like a shroud. The weight of Harold's threat still clung to my thoughts, a relentless whisper echoing in the recesses of my mind. I felt exposed under the vastness of the night sky, as if the stars themselves were watching, waiting for my next move. The cowboy stood just a few paces away, his face illuminated by the warm glow of the barn's lantern light. I turned back to the ambulance, where the paramedics worked diligently, their movements professional and unyielding. My friend lay vulnerable, her life now resting in the hands of strangers. Just moments before, she had been full of laughter and stories, and now she teetered on the edge of a precipice, a fragile thread holding her to the world. "Celeste," the cowboy said, breaking the silence that hung between us. "Are you all right?" There was sincerity in his voice, concern etched in every line of his rugged face. I wanted to assure him that I was fine, that I could weather this storm, but the truth felt lodged in my throat, a reminder of the chaos lurking beneath my facade. "I don't know," I finally admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "What if Harold is right? What if everything I've built collapses?" The tears I had fought to hold back threatened to spill over, the uncertainty of my situation unraveling my carefully composed exterior. The cowboy stepped forward, his presence like a sturdy lifeline amidst the swirling currents of doubt. "You're stronger than you think, Celeste. We'll get through this together," he said, the promise of his words wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. That I turned my gaze towards him, his dark eyes reflecting a reservoir of strength that I desperately needed. "Together?" I echoed, the word hanging in the air between us, laden with possibility. Did I dare to lean into this unexpected connection? My heart thrummed with fear and longing, the prospect of companionship being both tantalizing and terrifying. Before he could answer, a voice broke through the night, a soft, shaky call from the direction of the ambulance. "Celeste. Is that you?" My heart raced as I recognized the voice of my friend's mother, a woman who had always envisioned me as a part of her family. Despite the gaping gulf between our worlds, that I turned to see her approaching, her face gaunt with worry but still holding an undeniable strength. She reached me, wrapping her arms around me with a fierce grip, her warmth momentarily dispelling the chill of uncertainty. "What happened? Is she going to be okay?" Her eyes searched mine, desperate for answers as tears glistened on her cheeks. I don't know. The paramedics are doing everything they can," I stammered, my voice trembling as I fought to hold back my own tears. The weight of her fear felt like an anchor, pulling me into the depths of despair I had tried so hard to escape. "Celeste, you need to stay strong," she whispered fiercely, a mother's intuition shining through. "She needs you to be her light." The depth of her words struck a chord deep within me, igniting a sliver of resolve among my swirling doubts. After a few heartbeats, she pulled back to look at me, her hands gently cupping my face. "You always had a fire inside you. Don't let anyone douse it, not Harold, not anyone." There was a softness in her voice, a reminder of the countless times I had found refuge in her kindness. It grounded me. As she spoke, I stole a glance at the cowboy, who stood a respectful distance away, his hands tucked into the pockets of his jeans. He watched with an understanding that gave me courage, a quiet assurance that I wouldn't have to face Harold's shadows alone. In that moment, a flicker of determination ignited within me. I wouldn't allow fear to dictate my actions, nor would I let Harold's words seep into my identity any longer. Yet, as I absorbed the energy around me, my friend's mother's love, the cowboy's unwavering support, I felt a stirring sense of foreboding. Would Harold escalate his quest to undermine me? Perhaps he wasn't done with his torment, and I could sense a storm brewing just beneath the surface that I turned back towards the ambulance where my friend was being prepped for transport. A paramedic caught my eye and gave me a reassuring nod before loading her in. "We will take good care of her," he said, meeting my gaze with an understanding that made my heart swell with gratitude. That I moved closer, instinctively reaching for my friend's hand, a lifeline in this brutal world. But as I held her warmth against the coldness surrounding us, I caught sight of a figure emerging from the shadows beyond the barn, a silhouette unmistakably Harold. My heart dropped as dread washed over me. He was back, lurking like a storm cloud, ready to drench any flickering flame of hope I had ignited. The air thickened with tension as he strode into view, and even the stars seemed to dim in reaction to his dark energy. "Celeste," he called, his voice smooth and dripping with charm, but even in the night, I could sense the predatory undertone. "You must realize, running and hiding won't shield you from the truth." "What do you want, Harold?" I snapped, my heart racing with defiance, the past clawing at my heels. He paused, a sickly smile spreading across his lips. "I merely want to remind you that your descent has only just begun. After all, I have a few secrets kept just for you." With his ominous words lingering in the air, I felt the ground shift beneath me, leaving me reeling with uncertainty. As the sirens faded into the background, the weight of his presence loomed larger than ever, casting a dark shadow over the hopeful beginnings I had fought so hard to nurture. Would the firefighter's warmth, the mother's love, and the cowboy's strength be enough to keep me afloat? Or would Harold's threats unravel everything I had desperately clung to? The night held too many answers, and with each heartbeat, the tension escalated, spiraling closer to the cliff's edge, a cliff I was certain I would soon have to face. The air felt thick as I stood frozen in place, Harold's words wrapping around me like a noose. The warmth from my friend's hand slipped through my fingers as the reality of his looming threat settled in. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I had to fight every instinct to retreat, to escape the suffocating aura he exuded. "Secrets?" I echoed, the tremor in my voice betraying the resolve I had just forged. My heart raced as I tried to steady myself, unwilling to give Harold the satisfaction of my fear. "What nonsense are you spouting now?" He stepped closer, and the shadows seemed to dance at his feet. Despite the urgency of the night, he spoke as if we were merely sharing a cup of coffee in a cozy cafe. "Oh, but Celeste, you'll see. The world is about to unveil its truths. You're not the only one harboring secrets." My pulse quickened, a primal instinct urging me to flee. I glanced toward my friend's mother, who stood just a few paces away, her worry morphing into a mix of confusion and alarm. The paramedics were oblivious to the escalating tension, but I could feel the weight of Harold's intentions or his twisted interpretations of them hanging in the air. "Get away from her." It was the cowboy who intervened, stepping purposefully between me and Harold. There was a palpable tension as his protective stance radiated strength and defiance. "She doesn't want anything to do with you." "Oh, how noble," Harold replied, able to disguise his venom with a charming veneer. "But you really think you can shield her from what I know? From what I can do?" His words sent a chill down my spine. "What do you think you're going to do, Harold?" I shouted, desperation clawing at the edges of my voice. "You're just a bad memory. That little flicker of hope." Harold taunted, leaning forward with dark delight. "It's not going to last long. I plan to make my presence known, and trust me, when the walls start crumbling, don't expect any mercy from me." I struggled to hold my ground, but the world felt like it was shifting. So many emotions collided within me, the horror of what he might invoke, the fear of unraveling before my friend's mother, and the cowboy, whose fierce protectiveness felt like a lifeline even as everything else threatened to drown me. "Celeste," the cowboy said softly, snapping me back to the moment. "Stay close to me. Don't listen to him." His calm, steady presence wrapped around me like a shield. For a fleeting moment, I felt safe, supported by his unwavering resolve. The warmth of his words anchored me, pushing back the encroaching darkness that Harold represented. But the tension could not be averted entirely. Harold smirked, a predator enjoying the spectacle. "You'll regret clinging to hope, my dear. The truth has a way of revealing itself when you least expect it." My heart pounded in my chest, but I knew I needed to focus on my friend. I glanced towards the ambulance, where the paramedics were just sealing the doors. I took a step back, wanting to distance myself from Harold's dark energy, and turned my attention to the task at hand. We needed to follow them to the hospital, to ensure my friend was okay. As if sensing my inner conflict, the cowboy placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Let's go, Celeste. You're not alone in this." Just before I turned away, I caught a glimpse of Harold's face, contorted into something sinister. "Don't forget what I said." "I'll be waiting," he called, his voice like icy fingers wrapping around my heart. That I couldn't shake the feeling that this confrontation was only the beginning. As I walked toward the ambulance, inching closer to the remnant shimmers of hope that whispered of a fight not yet lost, I felt the cowboy's presence beside me, his warmth a stark contrast to the chill Harold left behind. But as soon as we reached the ambulance, my pulse quickened again, not from fear but from an unshakable premonition. The paramedic opened the back door, their faces drenched in urgency, and time seemed to distort. Every heartbeat felt like it crackled with an electric anticipation. Just then, everything changed. "Wait. We need to check for her belongings," I started, but the paramedic shook his head, urgency palpable in the air. "There's no time," he insisted, pushing the door closer. I turned to grab my friend's hand once more, hoping to leave her with a piece of my spirit. But it was then that I noticed something glimmering from beneath her blanket, a gleaming silver locket, one I had never seen before. I reached for it, heart pounding, and as soon as my fingers brushed against it, a flicker of dread ignited within me. What secret could it hold? At that moment, as the ambulance doors closed with a heavy thud, a realization washed over me. Harold's cryptic warning was just the beginning. With the weight of the locket in my palm, the question loomed larger than ever: could this tiny object be the key to unraveling everything? Or was I simply drawing myself deeper into a web spun by Harold's machinations? As the ambulance sped off into the night, I felt the bittersweet tendrils of hope entwining with fear. The lingering darkness had yet to reveal its hand, and the game I was thrust into was forcing me into a corner. I had to uncover the truth behind that locket and find a way to protect not only myself but everyone I cared about. In the distance, Harold's taunts echoed, a grim reminder that the next revelation could shatter everything I had fought to hold on to. The hospital loomed ahead, a stark light against the dark canvas of night, its harsh fluorescent signs a pale imitation of the life that buzzed around it. My heart raced as the ambulance came to a sudden stop. Every beat echoed Harold's ominous words. I slipped the locket into my pocket, feeling its cold weight press against my thigh, a tangible reminder that danger was lurking just out of sight. The cowboy, the nameless figure of my burgeoning hope, kept a steady hand on my back as we rushed through the automatic sliding doors. His presence was grounding amidst my rising turmoil, and I drew in a shaky breath, pushing back the panic threatening to spill over. "Stay close," he murmured, his voice calm yet imbued with urgency. I nodded, feeling the warmth of that simple promise wrap around me. As we navigated the bright, sterile corridors, the buzz of hospital activity created a strange paradox of hope and despair. We passed nurses tending to patients, families huddled together in corners, and the soft beeping of machines resonating with fragile lives. Ahead, a waiting room stretched out, its chairs filled with tense silhouettes, friends and families clinging to one another in shared anxiety. I looked toward the kid's doorway, anxiety twisting in my gut. Yet, even in the darkest of times, there was room for kindness. A nurse caught my eye and approached, her face warm and inviting amidst the clinical surroundings. "Are you with the girl who was brought in?" she asked, her eyes softening with empathy that I swallowed hard. "Yes. My friend, she let me check on her," the nurse said gently, taking note of my distress. "I'll be back in just a moment." I turned to look at the cowboy, who watched the nurse retreat before focusing his gaze on me. "What is her name?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "Rachel," I whispered, the name slipping from my lips like a prayer. She's strong, but you'll get through this. His grip tightened reassuringly, and for that moment, something flickered inside me, a tiny ember of confidence. Our conversation was cut short as the nurse returned, her expression shifting from concern to a hint of resolution. She's stable, but we're doing further tests. You can see her shortly, but she needs time. Relief washed over me like a rush of cold water, but I remained cautious. Thank you. Can I be with her? You'll have to wait on that, dear. We need to ensure she's truly stable first. In the meantime, maybe you could sit. You, she pointed to the cowboy, can't be visiting unless you're family. The cowboy's brows knitted tighter as he glanced at me quickly before stepping back, a silent accord passing between us. I felt his presence recede, leaving me momentarily adrift, but it made sense. I needed to be by Rachel's side. As I took a seat, the world stirred around me. Parents clasped their children's hands, lovers leaned on each other's shoulders, and a child's laughter cut through the suffocating fear that clung to the waiting room. The sounds were bittersweet. My gaze fell on the locket nestled in my pocket, the metal cool against my fingertips. What secrets did it hold? As hope darted and danced before me, I felt a presence beside me, the cowboy returning with a sense of quiet determination. Hey, he said softly, you're going to get through this. We'll figure out what that is later. He tapped my pocket lightly, and a reassuring smile broke through the tension. A moment later, the door swung open, and a doctor walked in. His demeanor steered the atmosphere toward caution. Rachel's responsive, he began, scanning the room. But we need to look more into what caused her distress. We believe he hesitated, searching for the right words. We believe she may have faced an emotional trigger, but we'll need tests to confirm. Emotional trigger. My mind raced through a whirlwind of possibilities: the accident, something she faced at home, or even the presence of someone threatening. But could it be Harold? The doctor's face, however, remained serious. For now, we're going to observe her. I'd recommend you keep people away who might exacerbate her condition, like stress from any kind of conflict. Like? I blinked, my heart dropping as a shiver of dread nestled deeper inside me. Anyone who might have caused her distress. He looked pointedly at me, urging me to read between the lines. The room felt suffocating again. I glanced towards the cowboy, who remained silent, holding my hand steadily as if to anchor me to the moment. A flood of possibilities erupted inside my mind, each more terrifying than the last. Thank you, doctor, I said, my voice trembling. Can we see her? Soon. In the meantime, would you want to get something to eat? Gather yourself. You're clearly under stress. Yet just as I was about to nod, a sudden commotion erupted outside the hospital doors. An intense voice rang through the corridor, sharp with anger. Where is she? The question, choked with urgency and accusation, frayed the air like a ripping seam. My heart dropped as I recognized that voice. It was Harold. The cowboy stiffened, and I felt the light draining from the room, replaced by palpable fear. He looked at me with fierce intent, his eyebrows drawing tight. Stay here. I'll handle it, he said, shifting into protector mode. Wait. I called, panic rising, but before I could protest, he had already darted down the hall, a figure of resolve ready to confront the encroaching chaos. And as I sat there, heart racing and mind swirling, I felt the world around me cave in. I had just entwined myself with new bonds, only to have the looming darkness of my past threaten to unravel it all. As I clutched the locket, dread coursed through my veins. Was the truth it held going to be weaponized against me? In that moment, the weight of the unknown enveloped me, and I silently asked the universe if I would find out before it was too late. The waiting room felt suffocating, a gravity that pressed down on me as I held on to the hope that was beginning to fray at the edges. My heart pounded in my chest as I strained to hear what was happening in the corridor. The echo of Harold's voice sent icy fingers creeping up my spine, sending me spiraling into panic that I clutched the locket harder, its edges sharp against my fingertips, a ghost of a memory lingering in the air. If Harold were to step through those doors, his shadow would loom over everything, choking out the flicker of light I had found in the cowboy's presence. I could already feel the weight of his anger pressing against the walls, threatening to crush the fragile serenity of the space around me. A moment stretched into eternity before I saw the cowboy stride purposefully back into the waiting room, sweat glistening on his brow and his jaw clenched tight. He wasted no time approaching me, his intention clear on his face. I glanced behind him, half expecting to see Harold's menacing figure following closely, but he was alone. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low and steady, yet the intensity behind his gaze suggested he had just stepped from the edge of a confrontation. I don't know," I whispered. "Did you see him?" "Did he?" Harold's not coming in," the cowboy assured me, though I could see the tension in his posture hadn't dissipated. "He's in the lobby, but I made sure he understood he had no business being here." Relief washed over me, but it quickly mingled with fresh anxiety. "But what if he tries to?" the cowboy interjected firmly. "You have to trust me on this. He's not worth your breath." His gaze, unwavering, held a sense of calm in counterbalance to the storm that brewed within me. "You're safe here. Just focus on Rachel." His words were a lifeline, but I couldn't shake the impending dread that lingered at the edge of my thoughts. What Harold might do, how he could twist the truth, was an unseen threat, one I could no longer ignore. "Everything feels like it's spiraling out of control," I murmured, trying to rein in my spiraling thoughts. "What if he finds a way to manipulate this? What if he listened to me?" The cowboy leaned in closer, his intensity softening for a brief moment. "Life's full of unexpected turns, and the outcome isn't always what we fear. Right now, your focus needs to be on Rachel. She needs you." His earnestness wrapped around me like a warm embrace, blocking out the chill encroaching from my memories of Harold's dominance and his ability to upend my world with mere words. Slowly, I nodded, taking a deep breath to steady my racing heart. A nurse appeared, breaking the weighty silence that had settled over us. Her smile cut through the atmosphere, and she approached with a dossier in hand. "Rachel's ready for visitors," she announced, her tone gentle but holding that faint edge of caution. "But she'll need your support, especially right now." "Thank you," I stammered, feeling butterflies stir in my stomach. I rose to my feet, prompting the cowboy to step beside me. "Let us go," he urged, the warmth of his encouragement igniting a flicker of hope within me. As we walked toward the door leading to Rachel's room, I felt the locket pressing into my thigh, as if it possessed secrets that could change everything. When we stepped into the hospital room, the harsh light seemed to fade, leaving only the stark reality of Rachel lying unconscious but tranquil on the bed. Her family had left for a moment but had placed their faith in me, the unlikeliest of allies. How could this be the same vibrant girl I had shared so many moments with? I approached her bedside, my heart aching at the sight of her pale face. "Rachel?" I whispered, grasping her hand gently as a wave of warmth surged through me. "It's me. Please come back to us." For a moment, I felt a swell of confidence. She would hear me. The cowboy lingered by the door, giving me space, but the lingering tension rolled off him like the scent of an incoming storm. I could sense he was listening, rendered silently on the sidelines, and the realization that he cared deepened my resolve. As I watched Rachel's shallow breaths, something shifted in me, igniting memories of our riotous laughter and shared dreams. I thought of her strength that buoyed me, and as I held her hand, a thought flickered through my mind: what if the locket held not only secrets but also a message of understanding, an echo of who we once were? Time felt suspended, proudly hanging between moments of despair and hope when suddenly, the door creaked open, and the shadow of Harold appeared like a dark cloud moving over the sun. "Is she really worth all this trouble?" he sneered, an edge of ill mockery woven into his words. "You think you can just waltz in and be the hero?" The cowboy stepped between us, his back to me, posture rigid and defiant. "You need to leave," he commanded, his voice unyielding, but my heart raced even louder, trapped between fear and sympathy for the man who had kept me grounded. Or what? You'll protect her from me? Harold scoffed, stepping closer, causing the air to thicken. She's just a weak little girl. The cowboy's voice boomed with intensity, cutting through Harold's jeers like a knife. You don't know a damn thing about her strength. The tension felt palpable, and in that moment, revelation struck me like a lightning bolt. Was Harold merely a ghost of my past, or was he a wound that was yet to heal? Before I could process his implication, the door behind Harold swung open again, catching both our attentions. A nurse stepped in, her face a mix of annoyance and distress. Sir, you need to leave. This isn't a place for confrontation, she said, gesturing for Harold to step back. But before I could even breathe a sigh of relief, Harold turned his piercing gaze back on me. This isn't over, he hissed, a venomous promise that wrapped around my heart like a vice. You'll regret this choice. His words echoed, lingering like a bitter taste I couldn't wash away. The cowboy moved forward to stand beside me, exuding strength even in the face of looming shadows. But how long could we shield ourselves from the shadows of the past? As Harold exited, the cabin of space we had carved out for us felt shattered, like breaking glass. I grasped the locket tightly, drawing courage from its presence as the unsettling realization sank in: the fight had only just begun. Would I emerge victorious, or would I lose myself in the chaos that swirled around me? I took a moment, a sliver of time, to hold Rachel's hand, whispering silent prayers that perhaps the secrets hidden in the locket would offer more than answers. Perhaps they would offer hope to face whatever darkness lay ahead. Yet, deep within my soul, the nagging thought remained: with every decision, the road painted itself with shadows, and soon, I would have to confront what I had fearfully delayed. The hospital room was a cocoon of silence, heavy with the weight of unsaid words and lingering fears. As I held Rachel's hand, my heart skipped in recognition of her warmth, a warmth that was both a comfort and a reminder of the fragility of life. The cowboy's presence beside me radiated strength, yet the shadows of our recent confrontation cast a pall over the moment. I could still hear Harold's words echoing in my mind, taunting and threatening, a malignant specter I couldn't shake. Is she really worth all this trouble? Harold's sneer had crawled beneath my skin like a parasite. Would I be able to protect Rachel? As I stared at her still form, a new wave of determination surged through me. I breathed deeply, steadying my heartbeat while readying myself for what lay ahead. The nurse remained in the background, her pen scratching against paper as she noted observations, her presence both reassuring and intrusive. I stole a glance at the cowboy beside me. He was focused on Rachel, his features softening as he looked upon her with an almost paternal tenderness. It was a stark contrast to the harshness of Harold, yet my mind spiraled with doubts and questions. What now? I asked the cowboy in a hushed tone, breaking the stillness. What if he comes back? He won't, he replied, turning his gaze toward me, the warmth in his eyes quieting my fears momentarily. But if he does, we face him together. The resolve in his words ignited a flicker of hope. I had been navigating the storm alone, struggling against the tide. For the first time, it felt like we were a team, united against a common foe. Thank you for standing up to him, I whispered, gratitude swelling within me. I didn't know if I could, if I even wanted to. The cowboy's expression shifted, something unreadable glinting in his eyes. You're stronger than you think. And she needs you to be strong now more than ever. I glanced back at Rachel, wishing for her to open her eyes, for any sign that she was still with us. The hope I held flickered like a candle, vulnerable yet persistent. Suddenly, a faint sound broke through the silence, a soft beeping that resonated through the room, punctuating the stillness with urgency. Her vitals, they're changing. The nurse exclaimed, her voice now laced with tension as she rushed to Rachel's side, adjusting monitors with brisk efficiency while the cowboy moved closer to observe. Panic clawed at my heart, my breath catching in my throat. What is happening? She's responsive, the nurse said, barely looking up. It could just be a reflex, but we'll need to watch her closely. A surge of possibility washed over me. Rachel? I called, squeezing her hand tightly. Can you hear me? We're here. Just hold on. Time danced forward, then stood still. The cowboy's presence anchored me, his steady gaze reassuring as the nurse continued to monitor Rachel with the fervor of precious minutes. I could feel the weight of uncertainty looming, a phantasmal opponent teasing hints of defeat, circling closer. Just as I began to relax into that flicker of hope, the door swung open again, and my heart sank as I recognized the familiar silhouette of Harold. Dread pooled in my stomach, his eyes sharp and probing, scanning the room as if searching for weakness. I thought I told you to leave, the cowboy said, stepping forward to intercept him. I'm not here for you, he said, his demeanor dripping with disdain. I came for Rachel. His gaze turned icy, fixed on my friend as if he could siphon away her strength with mere intention. Get away from her. I shouted, feeling flames of anger ignite. You have no right to be here. Her father owes me a debt, Harold said coldly, seeming unfazed by my outburst. And Rachel has been nothing but a pawn in this game since the day she was born. Just like you. Leave her out of this. The cowboy's voice was a low rumble, eddies of power swirling around him, ready to defend. The confrontation crackled with intensity, rage brewing just beneath the surface. I felt utterly helpless, straddling a line between my long-buried fears and the newfound courage. The cowboy had coaxed from within me. Suddenly, a move from Harold set the air ablaze. He took a step closer to Rachel's bedside, and without thinking, I lunged forward, fear igniting my limbs. Don't you dare. In that instant, a startling realization struck me. Harold's presence here was not merely to threaten, it was a declaration that no matter what we did, his control loomed like a dark cloud above our heads. His hold could spill into our lives at any moment, shattering the fragile peace we fought for. Why don't you just leave everyone alone for once? I pleaded, my voice wavering as I gripped the edge of the bed. Let her be. Harold's lips curled into a twisted smile, his eyes flickering with amusement. You truly believe you can save her? That you can save yourself? Enough, the cowboy said, steel in his tone, poised to leap into conflict if warranted. But before he could act, Harold produced a small envelope from his coat pocket, sliding it toward Rachel with a smirk. Since you think you're so brave, you might want to keep an eye on this, then, he said, his voice low and dripping with malice. I snatched the envelope, my hands trembling, eyeing the contents apprehensively. Harold's laughter echoed in my ears as he turned to leave, but just as the door swung shut behind him, a sudden tremor coursed through the air, resonating with potential. What could be inside? I felt the whispers of dread curl around my heart, wrapping tighter as I opened it, each breath becoming a battle against the flood of uncertainty. Would this envelope hold the answers I feared? Or was it just another dagger aimed at Rachel's heart? No matter what, I realized I stood at a precipice ready to delve into the depths of my own anxieties, willing to face the storm. As I carefully unfolded the contents, a photograph slipped from the envelope, revealing a truth I never anticipated. My breath caught, momentarily paralyzed by what I saw, an image that seemed to intertwine our lives in ways I had only begun to understand. It stirred shadows from my past, casting an unexpectedly vivid light on the present moment, opening a door that had long been closed. In that heartbeat, I knew I was standing on the cusp of something profound, an unraveling journey of secrets, ties that bound me to Rachel, and a destiny that I could not yet see. As I pondered Harold's sinister motives, I prepared for the battle ahead, clutching the locket and the photograph as dual talismans of hope against the encroaching darkness. Just as I felt the weight of resolve solidify, a quiet oath taken amidst the chaos, the heart monitor began to beep erratically, pulling my attention back to where it mattered most. The sound surged, louder than before, a siren heralding the storm that was sure to follow. Rachel was in trouble, and time was slipping through my fingers faster than I could grasp. One truth hung in the air like tension ready to snap: this wasn't simply about Rachel anymore, it was about my own heart, torn between two worlds, one that sought to protect, and one that would do everything in its power to destroy. Would I be able to protect her, or would I lose everything, succumbing to the choices that woven together, sealing our fates. In that instant, the heartbeat of the room seemed to synchronize with the relentless beeping of the monitor, each pulse echoing my mounting dread. Every second felt like a lifetime, as I stared at Rachel stirring now, but in a way that left me terrified. Her eyelids fluttered, and I grasped her hand tighter, willing her to find her way back to me, back to the light and laughter we had once shared. "Rachel. Can you hear me?" I blurted, my voice a surreal mix of urgency and hope. It was like a desperate mantra, pleading with the universe to bring her back. The noise of the hospital faded into a muted background as my world narrowed down to her. The cowboy's presence softened but remained resolute beside me, his unwavering gaze locked on her face. He must have sensed my trepidation, his hand coming to rest on my shoulder, a solid support anchored in the chaos. "You're doing everything you can," he murmured, but inside, I felt an overwhelming tide threatening to consume me. Would it be enough? Just as the nurse rushed back in, flustered by the erratic beeping of the monitor, Rachel's form began to shake lightly, a tremor that could be panic or an awakening. I held my breath as the nurse deftly moved to her side, adjusting leads and calling for equipment with a calm I desperately needed. "Stay back for a moment," she instructed, her voice taking on an urgent yet reassuring tone, but not even the nurse's commanding presence could bring peace to the storm brewing inside me. I turned to the cowboy. What if we lose her? I can't. My voice cracked under the weight of the possibility, the fear that had haunted me since the chaos unfolded. That he turned to me, power and compassion intertwining in his eyes. "You will not lose her," he said firmly. "You're stronger than you believe. Fight for her, fight for yourself." Just then, the nurse leaned in closer, her expression shifting as she smiled at Rachel's stirring. "Rachel? Can you hear me?" she prompted. Rachel's eyelids fluttered again, and with the intensity of that moment, I felt a flicker which she grasped the lifeline I was extending. "Please, Rach," I whispered, tears prickling the corners of my eyes. "Please come back. We need you now more than ever." I willed my strength into her grasp, filling the space with love and determination. The seconds felt elongated, as we held our breath together, the power of shared hope transforming the very air we inhaled. But it was during this moment of heartbreak that Rachel's gaze snapped open, wide and bewildered. "Celeste." She breathed, her voice fragile and fretted with confusion but oh so sweet. I surged forward, placing my hands on hers. Yes. I'm here." My heart thundered in my chest as I fought against the tears threatening to escape. "You're going to be okay. Just hold on. You're safe." The nurse adjusted her posture, rushing to the equipment, but I could hardly focus on anything but Rachel's eyes. "Harold, he wanted me to," she stammered, trembling ever so slightly as fragmented memories pushed through. No, don't think about him. He can't hurt you." My instincts pushed away the cobweb of fear that threatened to ensnare her thoughts. "You're loved, Rach. We'll handle Harold together." But at the mention of Harold, I could see a shadow unfurling behind Rachel's eyelids, a deeper depth of fear tightening her features. It was then I realized he'd slipped through her life like a phantom, wielding secrets and harbored pain that lingered just out of reach. "Celeste, I'm scared," she whispered, her voice cracking as the tremors of uncertainty shook her. "Me too," I admitted, wiping tears away as I focused solely on her. "But we'll face it together. I promise." The cowboy had quietly slipped back to my side, casting an observant glance in my direction. An interconnection formed in the fire of desperate resolve. Just as the nurse began to chart Rachel's tentative recovery, the door swung open, and the specter of Harold returned, uninvited and unwelcome. Instinctively, my body went rigid, and I was ready to protect what mattered most once more. He stepped in, an unsettling air about him, as if he thrived on the unease he brought. His eyes landed on me, and in that moment, every ounce of anger, fear, and defiance ignited within me like 1,000 flames. "Look who's come back to life," he sneered, his eyes dancing with malice as he locked onto Rachel. "But don't get too comfortable, dear. You're still part of a story larger than you can comprehend. You may have escaped this time, but I have the means to unravel every comforting lie you cling to. Enough. The cowboy's voice exploded through the room, raw with protective intensity. You're not welcome here. This isn't your place, leave. Harold's smirk deepened, undeterred by the challenge. I just came to check on my favorite pawn, he said, feigning concern. You wouldn't want her head filled with foolish fantasies, now would you? In my gut, I felt a mixture of despair and rage rise. I had done nothing wrong, why did I owe him the horror he wielded against me like a weapon? Rachel's strength comes from within, Harold, I said, except my own voice quaked under the weight of his accusations. He turned to me, his dark eyes narrowing. And what about your strength, Celeste? Will it be enough to weather the storm that follows? Just leave, I said, my voice firmer than before, the fight rising like a tide inside me. You're only here to instill fear. But I won't allow you to manipulate us anymore. Harold stepped closer to Rachel's bed, but the cowboy stepped ahead, a fierce guardian ready to shield her. Stay away, he said soundly, moving with purpose. Your threat lies in your words, Harold taunted, sinister gleam in his eyes. You don't know how easily this can all tear apart. The voice that erupted from my throat was almost foreign, a blend of resolve and grief. Harold, you can't take anything more from us. Rachel is brave and fierce, and she, but just as I spoke, the previous trembling in the air turned electric, and the heart monitor began to wail once more, a dreadful sound that echoed my spiraling fears. Rachel's face contorted, her eyes rolling back, panic enveloping the room. No! I shouted, lurching forward, grabbing hold of her hand as a panic surged through my veins. Stay with us, Rachel. Stay with me. Calm her. The nurse shouted, rushing towards the bedside, her voice sharp and commanding. The air turned thick with tension, my heart pounding frantically in my chest as the room erupted into chaos. I watched in horror as the realization sank. Was this Harold's doing? Had he come back to finish what he started? But amidst the frenzy, the cowboy remained by my side, fierce determination blazing in his gaze as he took a step forward, shielding me from the encroaching darkness. Enough. You need to leave now. He growled at Harold, whose darkened figure flickered with tension. Let us see if she can withstand the truth, shall we? Harold hissed, a glint of madness dancing behind his words, no longer concealing the dangerous persona lurking beneath his facade. And just like that, the strength I'd felt only moments earlier began to fade, squeezing into a tight knot of vulnerability as everything spiraled. But what if he was right? What if the truth would rip apart the delicate threads of hope I had woven through my heart? Suddenly, I felt the cowboy's presence beside me, steadying and unwavering. Don't listen to him, he urged. This is your fight. You can protect her. Don't look away, he whispered, gripping my shoulder a little tighter. You're stronger than you know. I dared to meet Rachel's gaze, and amidst the chaos, as hearts raced and shadows loomed, all vulnerability stripped away, the swirling darkness around us faded. In that moment, we formed an unbreakable bond, her hand secured in mine, the cowboy's protective energy encircling us like a warm embrace, illuminating the choices that lay before us. Then came the moment that changed everything. Through the cacophony in the room, something deep inside me ignited a promise to stand firm, to not back down amid the tidal waves of fear threatening to crash over us. Rachel, please, stay with me. I need you to fight. We can do this together, I breathed with newfound determination. Together, she echoed softly, the call of recognition echoing through the turmoil strumming against the walls of my heart. Harold sneered, a flicker of insecurity playing across his features as the nurse kept pushing back against him, trying to maintain control. And in the quiet tension of the storm, I realized that our power lay in unity, an unshakable bond infused with the undeniable truth of our strength, our multifaceted intricacies woven together amid the chaos. I'm not afraid of you, Harold, I said, my voice rising above the tumult, the weight settling like a mantle around my heart. We embrace our truth, our connection. This is not your game. It's ours. The certainty that blossomed within me felt like a stunning revelation, illuminating the shadows of fear that had threatened to pull me under. As Harold's expression shifted, curiosity inching forth to meet disbelief, I knew I had taken the first step forward toward liberation. The fears would persist, relentless and haunting, but they finally had a name. Rachel squeezed my hand, and the monitor slowed, grounding us once more. The glint in the cowboy's eyes assured me that hope remained, and within me, strength transformed into resolve, a promise to carry through the layers of truth yet hidden. "Take that with you, Harold," I dared to say, potent with defiance. "You have no hold on us anymore. We are here to stay. If this is a game you want to play, then let us do it," the cowboy asserted, stepping closer to me, fierce in the protection of Rachel. As her strength began to shine forth once more, surrounded by the support of those who mattered, I understood the truth mirrored in every heart: strength, connection, vulnerability, and loved ones that could withstand the greatest trials. And together, we surged forward into the storm, burning brighter as we carved a path through the darkness, a promise lingering in the air, declaration sealed in that moment of unity, beneath the weighty shadows we had dared to defy. As I embraced this promise, it crystallized within me, thrumming alongside my heartbeat, a reminder that with love and solidarity, the light could never truly be extinguished. My friends, my heart, my fierce and brave Rachel, we would weather whatever tumult lay ahead. We would harness every ripple, every scar, every ounce of courage. For they were what made us who we were: dimensions of truth woven together, a vivid tapestry etched anew in hope, revealing a tapestry rich with possibility. And I knew, in the depth of my spirit, that together, we would transcend. Together, I whispered, the echo resonating through the fabric of time, the seeds of love finding roots amid despair, a promise as vivid as the stars dancing in the night. No shadow can extinguish our light.